us where like Hypertech is? And
sure. Yeah, so right here you'll see the lots. Actually, Hypertech has acquired several different lots. They've acquired lots that are up in here and in this section here. So most of what we see down right into this area as well, cutting in, I believe, right up here. So we have about 4 different wetlands that are located. It's a wetland habitat, nonetheless, what we call a treed swamp in places, marécage arbustif. You won't be able to see it now, but at least not within the marsh. But let's see if, oh, maybe we'll go to another, we're going to go up here. Okay. Wow. Eastern kingbird here. Beautiful.
There's a bird on that little stick thing. So is that bird there one of the endangered species?
No, but it's the eastern kingbird is an insect eating bird, an insectivore, and we know that our insectivore populations are really declining. This site is special for its waterfowl, so we have egrets and great blue herons and black-crowned night herons. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
You'll see in the distance there are also photographers that are out right now, so it's a space that's really appreciated by birdwatchers and photographers alike.
The kind of dead trees that we see, is that normal?
Yeah, so the space was created by beavers primarily to create the wetlands. So this is often the case when we have trees that stand for a long time in water. This is what marsh will look like over time.
Okay. It's beautiful.
So we have a raptor up on the branch there. This is the American kestrel, and we know that the American kestrel populations are undergoing really serious declines.
Okay.
I'll show you where it is, if you can see. So in that, if you look right at 12 o'clock from where I'm standing, there's the silhouette. It's going to be terrible backlit light for you, but there's a full tree. It's not the stump of a tree. It looks like a full tree without any branches. I mean, without any, with several branches. It's got 3 branches that don't record me as saying this. This is awful. So you have a tree that has 3 major.
Is it? I think I see it. But
yeah, it's like a. So in your line of vision, do you see like this first?
There's like a V. Is it the one?
Yeah. There's no. So there's a V that goes. See where this bird just flew up. That's going to be that's not the same bird. That's a female red-winged blackbird, or it's a male. I can't even. If you look behind so the trees that are here in the foreground to us, there's this tree that comes up just like this right in front of us here. Do you see like the 1, 2, 3 trees here right in front of us? Then the next set right behind, there's that tree that goes. If you follow that between. If you look straight through there is a kind of opening. Yeah, that is the American kestrel, and I'm sure you're not going to be able to.
I mean, the camera has a pretty good zoom, but it's just like, wait, I'm trying to like.
It's really hard, even for me, to. I'm just identifying it by the structure of it because the backlighting is so bad. But we know that this site is often visited by American kestrels, and that kestrels in particular are undergoing really sweeping declines in eastern North America. We think it's related perhaps to the decline in grasshoppers and loss of habitat. So this is a space for them. it may not seem like there's much going on, but we've got lots of birds right now around us. So the green-winged teal is out, ducks are out, as well as the tree swallows that you see flying as well.
And is this area here at threat with the construction?
Yeah,
right
so
there?
this site actually had a big sinkhole open up in it
Wow.
2 summers ago. And we had towards, I was started in July, and the water levels were very low. We've been monitoring those water levels ever since, and we know that this year the water levels appear to be a little lower than they should be, so it's of concern to us. The marsh faces lots of pressures, and having sinkholes open up hasn't helped. It should be said that the REM did fill in the sinkhole, so there was an effort at compensation, even though there was not an assumption of responsibility. So their line was that it could be related to the lowered levels of water, could be related to heat and not to the sinkholes. But they did acknowledge that the sinkholes that opened up were caused by the tunnel boring machine.
But in general, like lower water levels, even if it's not directly the REM, it's still some type of industrial impact on our environment?
You know, studies need to be done. So at Technoparc Oiseaux, we are really insistent on being as evidence-based as possible, and to have proper hydrology studies done of the sector as a whole. We know that this is one vast wetland complex, or we presume it's one vast wetland complex. So we have water in one section, wetlands in one section that may affect the integrity of wetlands in other sectors, because we have obviously the underground water to consider. And it is, soil is obviously wetland. So to drill under a wetland is obviously something that faced challenges on the part of the REM. So we had a sinkhole open up here. We had other sinkholes open up in the forest as well. And I can show you that fenced off area if that's of interest as well.
Okay.
And you know, you don't
you.
see a lot of marshes anymore with these are cattails. So the cattails, like the species behind us, this is an invasive species, Phragmites. They tend to take over swamps in southern Quebec without proper management. But the cattails are a sign of a thriving marsh. So
Good.
there are also some endangered. There's the fringed heartwort. I don't know if you want to get a close-up of vegetation or not, but there's an imperiled vegetation. Imperiled simply because it's like a lot of other, maybe, yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. So we have the duckweed. We'll keep looking. Maybe on the other side, there's another spot. It's a very tiny little plant. Sorry. There was just a garter snake that was there.
Oh boy. Yeah, you got to be prepared for anything.
I tapped that while you were. I hope I didn't blow out your ears.
Don't worry. How long have you been visiting this area, and what are maybe some changes you've seen?
Yeah, so I started getting really involved in the conservation of the Technoparc in 2017, 2018. That was after the destruction, the felling of trees. I wasn't present to witness that. A lot of people who were present to witness that were just utterly devastated by it, and took a step back and have now rejoined the battle to conserve the area. So obviously the people who have been tracking this area for a really long time, since 2010 in fact, have seen sweeping changes. This road, for example, that was put in, you'll see these used to be all trees and connected. We have light posts that have gone in that interfere with migration. Light pollution is a major problem for our migrating bird species. We have grass and a sidewalk that was put in, but this is the road that we called the road that goes nowhere. And this dike as well was put in 2017, 2018 for the draining of the marsh. Oh, okay. There's some other organizers here.
Are you okay?
J'ai deux journalistes, Anglophone journalists from a local.
Okay. I think the
From the local.
autofocus might be off.
514.
OK.
Ouais, donc,
Il y a rien là-dedans. C'est vraiment pas lourd. On a creusé ce matin. Là,
okay.
il est vraiment
Okay. This is François Rioux. He's a co-organizer of Technoparc Oiseaux, and Jim Harris,
Nice to
who
meet you.
is also
Savannah.
with Technoparc
Oh,
Oiseaux.
journalist.
So they're interested in the sinkholes from the REM and in pressures on the area from development.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can just show you around the corner where the sinkhole is.
I'm still thinking that the one in there is the biggest problem
Mhm.
because I still can't explain. I can't think of any other explanation for why we're 6 weeks ahead of losing water from last year compared to last year.
Wow.
Why?
But again, like studies, like monitoring is really helpful, and just keeping an eye on it without making
Mais le mois de mai, il n'y a pas eu
assertions.
beaucoup
Yeah.
de pluie.
Non, mais ça fait pas une différence de 6 semaines.
Ouais.
Avant, le drainage naturel,
Mais
c'est pas aussi
le
vite
fait
que
qu'ils ont
ça.
ouvert les vannes ici, ça aide pas non plus.
Ça ajoute le problème.
Ouais.
C'est ça.
Oh, because they opened
Oui,
up.
oui, oui, ils ont ouvert.
Because the system of when they came in to drain the marsh to build the dike, I'm saying 2000, c'est 217. Yeah.
Well, they officially
Do you
came
want me
in
to
to
film
say
her talking?
yeah, there's a newly constructed drainage ditch. It was
Okay.
constructed in the winter of 2017.
Okay.
It was put in at the same time as this dike,
Mhm.
and it goes from here to another ditch right against the woods, the forest over there. And there's a water gate on the dike here, and there's an identical water gate over near the other place. So in the winter, that all fills up and it stays full until they open the gate on the far end.
Okay.
And that's as long as it's full, it's good for the
J'ai
pond.
mangé.
Okay.
There's no water coming out.
Okay.
But as soon as they open it up,
Regarde. Look at my phone.
and they told us that this would remain closed. But if this is closed, it's very leaky.
Okay. Okay.
Because the water went down, I would say the water went from about 6 feet, close to 6 feet high, or 6 feet deep, to almost nothing in just over a week.
Wow. That's horrifying.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, there's an area like right where the outtake is. It took until almost the end of July last year for that to be out of water,
Okay.
and as of last week, it's already out of water.
Okay. Wow.
That's a big difference. Yeah, my name is Jim Harris. I work with Technoparc Oiseaux. I've been involved with this group since July 2016.
Thanks, Jim. So could you tell me a little bit more? You were saying that there's a difference in the water levels?
Yes, after last year we decided to start monitoring the water levels in 9 locations around Etano-Zeron. And that was following the REM tunnel work and the subsequent draining of the pond two years ago. So in order to have a benchmark for what might be normal water levels, we decided, so we took measurements every week for 33 weeks starting last spring, ending just at the beginning of winter. And we're doing the same thing this year. And what happened recently is there's the station number 5, which is just next to the dike down the road here a little bit, where there's a water valve for controlling the water going out of the pond. That area held water until late July last year, and as of now already it's lost all its water. It's still a little bit moist, but there's no measurable water left in that area. So that's several weeks ahead of the draining from last year.
Okay. And what part of the REM construction is responsible for this?
Well, we have to hypothesize because we can't say for sure, but they were the only ones digging in the area. There were 5 sinkholes. There's 4 sinkholes in this area, and they may be contributing. But there was also a major sinkhole in the pond itself, right next to the shore over here, and we saw that area emptied very quickly last year, to the point where it was actually dangerous. They had to put protection pontoons around it and make sure nobody went there. And you could actually see the hole. They've come back. They filled it in. But the other thing they did was they injected a lot of liquid nitrogen into the ground to freeze everything so water wouldn't run into the tunnel works. So one of the questions becomes, what effect did all of that have? Because by definition, if they're freezing things, it's going to expand, and then when the liquid nitrogen is no longer there, it probably leaves behind new crevices and new ways for water to find the ground system.
Is the liquid nitrogen a threat to any species?
The way they apply, my understanding of the way they apply the liquid nitrogen is that it's contained. This is what they always told us. There appeared to be a structure here, so it would work kind of like your freezer or your refrigerator at home. So in theory, none of that liquid nitrogen gets into the ground, although eventually it all evaporates anyway. So nobody's talked about a direct threat from the liquid nitrogen, just the effects of the liquid nitrogen.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else that you want to
Oh, there's so many things, but can I think of them right now?
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Really
Which group are you with?
So we put on a web series called Local 514. It's affiliated.
It's called what?
Local 514.
Local 514?
Yeah, it's independent progressive media, and I can have Catherine or grab your contact and share the results.
Cool.
with you.
Sounds very interesting.
But yeah, we're affiliated with CUTV Montreal,
Okay.
which is affiliated with Concordia, but
Okay.
the show is beyond
Yeah.
kind of all of Montreal, and we focus on social and environmental issues.
Wow. Sounds like good work.
Thank you. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me.
I looked at coming here for about 2 months in 2016, and I kept saying to myself, why do I want to go to a place called the Technoparc? There's no birds in a place called the Technoparc. Little did I know. So I come here on July 10th, 2016, and that is kind of at the tail end of early fledged birds here. And I had never seen so many birds in one place since I went to Point Pelee. So I was like, immediately, there's two ponds that were here in 2016. They drained them both. They only ever told us they were going to drain one, but they secretly drained the larger of the two. It's right over there, and it's when it had water in it, we called it Marécourt because it's in the heart of everything. But it was this water here, before there was a dike. This water was connected directly to Marécourt, and then there's this irrigation ditch which you don't really see because it's been cut off by the dike, but it goes through here, and that connected water all the way through to Chemin Saint-Francois, so all the way across to the other end.
Okay.
And then all of the water was interconnected, and so there was a massive sort of bowl of irregular bowl of water. And what was good about that is that it allowed this area to hold more water early in the spring. But because they cut off more than half of that, that has contributed to the problems of the water drying out as much as the REM. So you add the two together, and it's devastating. We used to call this the bird feeder, le mangeoire, and that was because we in August 2016 we counted 50 herons fishing for food in there all at the same time. 4 different species, but 50 herons. The most we've seen since then is maybe 16, and that was unfortunately 2 years ago when the pond first dried out, because all of the fish that were left were forced into a smaller and smaller space, which was great for the herons because it was easy picking, right? So they came en masse to fish that out, which of course meant there were far fewer fish the next year. So there's like everything affects everything, right? So there's this sort of this multiplication of negative effects.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a full ecosystem.
Yes.
You throw off something, you throw off something else.
Yeah. And you know, we also think in terms of death by 1,000 cuts. You know, so each project they'll minimize and say, well, it's not very much, it's not this, it's not that, but you know, you put a project here that reduces buffer zones. Buffer zones are essential for a successful wetland. If you take away all the buffer zones, this will just disappear. Mm-hmm. No animals will use it, or very few. It'll be nothing like what it used to be. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the other thing we're trying to do now is we want them to rehydrate this whole area.
Okay.
And one of the suggestions we've come up with is just passing a series of conduits under the dike, so they could keep this dike. They seem to like this dike a lot. Just run a series of smaller conduits that allows the water to get from that side to this side. Yeah, and then stop draining. Like the drainage ditch they built is connected to Ruisseau Bertrand. Mm-hmm. And so they're draining water from here down Ruisseau Bertrand. Okay. So they need to stop doing that as well.
Okay. Okay.
And the last thing we want them to do, or one of the things we'd like them to do, is because this right now it's so devastating. The fact that this is going to be dry by August, you can be able to walk out into the middle of the pond.
Wow.
And that's the same thing we could do in 2 years ago, when there was virtually no water left.
Wow.
The developers keep insisting. They insist on two points of view. One is that this is just a wasteland. There's nothing of ecological interest. They downplay the importance of the ecological spaces here. They've gone so far as to say that the project must. They said in court that the project must go through. That's the only way to save the pond. Which is like insanity, and it's even more insane to believe it. But to say it is remarkable, because they literally drained away more than half of the water that used to be here on a regular basis. So I don't think you can actually accurately say that the best way to save a wetland is to drain half of it.
See the water tables, measuring the water.
And there's kind of like a stain up to the 5. Is that
so
like a
you see
natural?
where it had been, water levels have been previously and how low they are.
Do you see the?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I don't want to.
Do you want me to get it?
No, don't play.
May I put this on you again?
You're really well still.
Yeah, the
good.
sound is okay.
Yeah. Even when
Are
you
you
didn't have the mic on the.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
This is a fun thing if you don't have it on your phone. It's not 100% reliable, but we see the different sounds of the different birds. We'll get more. They've just suddenly gone quiet. But I hear American goldfinch in the background. It's not picking up on.
Are these the birds you usually catch?
Yeah, so we'll see. This is consistent with the kingbird. There's so many really neat citizen science tools or community science tools for providing a biodiversity profile of the site. So what we'll see in the hypertech lot is similar to this. So not a full-fledged, this isn't the hypertech site, so I would be careful about filming it and making an association.
This is still like the REM area?
Well, this, the REM tunnel has gone through, I can provide you an overview of the route of the REM tunnel. There's been publications about that as well. Cuts through in that direction into the airport. So, but the impact that the REM will have on the area as a whole is undoubtedly significant. Our argument is, wouldn't it be terrific to have a nature park that you could just take public transportation to and come and enjoy a quick nature fix not so far from downtown. So in the north of the island where there's so much of the heat island effect.
So this, I know we spoke a little bit about this the other day, but this isn't really under control of the city. It's more the province and the feds that are involved?
No, to the contrary. This is the sector that we're walking in right now, what we call the entire eco-campus sector, as well as IPEX, Marsh across Alexander Fleming. These are both under municipal jurisdiction.
Okay.
Roughly half of the surface area is privately held in different parcels. So it's not one big block for the city and one big block for private landowners that are nestled in different lots. And the Hypertech lots, I believe there are 4 in this sector that Hypertech purchased. There's another company, FP Innovation, that has holdings. Morguard is also a company that owns land in the IPEX sector. So we're hoping that the city will exercise its right of first refusal with the new delimitations of the park for Morguard. And we hope that the sectors for FP Innovation and Hypertech will be included in the plans the city has to protect the entirety of the park. The federal section is right across the street from where the REM is going in, and that Forêt des Sources and the Marais des Sources, that's all federally, and Champ des Monarques, that's all federally held.
Okay.
But you see, we have wetlands interspersed really everywhere. So Wichita, that's the common knowledge, right?
It's beautiful.
And these swallows, the tree swallows that we see, they nest here. We've, in conjunction with Environment Canada and the McGill Bird Observatory, we have banded 36 tree swallows this year to be able to help chart their success. So the dike is like a sort of barrage to stop the marsh from extending. And I'll send you the development plans for Technoparc Montreal, where we can see that was actually written into their development plans for businesses who would move in to be able to stop. In French, it's une digue pour stopper le marais, so a dike to stop the expansion of the marsh. So that's the drainage of 2/3. All of that is consistent with a drying out of the land to make it presumably more amenable to development. Lots of nesting, ground nesting birds. So we have killdeer, American woodcock. These are birds that nest on the ground. So it's not only the tree canopy we're concerned with. That's okay. Yeah, and this is just one sector. So this is maybe a 30-hectare sector out of the 215.
Let us know if we're going too fast or anything. We doing okay?
No, I'm fine. Okay. I know that when Mother Stephen went to the council meeting.
Yeah, Maire au Front. Yeah.
They talked about how they were supposed, Montreal had promised to extend the Technoparc of 175
hectares. Yes. Yeah.
So Is that like
Still in the works?
yeah?
Yeah, so just this past week on Monday, we were at City Council again because the city made a sweeping announcement on Friday stating that they would be creating the Parc Natural des Sources officially of 219 hectares, which is excellent news. It's a statement of intention. So it means that developers may be leery to start development because the city has stated their intention to create a park here, but nothing yet, apart from the 16 hectares that was city property, has been formally converted or acquired for the creation of that park. It includes federal land, a big chunk of federal land, roughly 160 hectares of federal land. And again, as we mentioned, the 30 hectares of privately held land. Now, and in fact, in the delimitation that the city proposed, we see that hypertech land is not included, which would essentially suggest that there's perhaps an opening for hypertech to move forward quite quickly with their development. So we are trying to get the word out as urgently as possible that while we are immensely encouraged at the idea of a formal big park being created, it's one thing to state intentions and it's another thing to actually acquire the land to be able to fully bring this park to fruition and make it a reality with services.
Yeah, because I know it has been talked about since 2021, so it's been like
since 2012, actually, the first regulation, the headline is the city will create a new Parc Natural des Sources, and reference to the Parc Natural des Sources has, when people talk about it existing, money has not been attributed to it yet, apart from the acquisition of these 16 hectares that resulted from the city's acquisition of Technoparc Montreal as a precarious business venture. I don't know if that's the best way to phrase it, but when there were financial difficulties for Technoparc Montreal, the city of Montreal stepped in and took over that. So those lands were reverted to city property. So we have 16 hectares that are now zoned officially for conservation that belong to the city. But 16 out of 200 plus.
And in 11 years as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're encouraged by this announcement, but we've seen over the past 10 years, the statement that we made officially was that while we are encouraged, we are also, we have some reservations given the history, the precedent for things being promised for this park and not delivered on. We will do everything possible to make it come to fruition, and we continue as volunteers to essentially conduct most of the maintenance for the entire site. So citizen science, community science initiatives, all the nest boxes, the trails, it's all maintained by volunteers.
Do you think that if there weren't, these efforts by conservation groups, these projects might move faster and be provided more kind of political will?
I think certainly the backlash that a company like Meltec faced when it proposed building over Monarch Fields, that backlash was swift, it was redounding, and I think it did give people pause. That's a speculation on our part because that project was withdrawn by the developers, and we don't want to say it was withdrawn necessarily because of citizen community pressure. Mm-hmm. But it's not a good look for a company that is priding itself on sustainability to be cutting down trees and building. So this is all going to be the hypertech law. It will be filling in, as far as I understand, part of this marsh here. We have, if you look into these little glades, you see the treed swamp nature of that you saw along the whole. So here, this would be a marked tree. Oh, yeah. Sorry if you have allergies. So we have trees, like if you can see in here, I don't know how comfortable you are coming in, but you'll see that a lot of these different trees, and it extends.
Here, it's okay.
It extends a good way into, so any of the pink.
You just might need to fix the
Yeah. No worries. I see it. So this is like a marking here.
Yeah,
right?
and you see further, do you see like the number, there's a number 6 in the distance, that in the middle there?
And so could you remind me again, what do these markings mean?
These are markings that we presume to be related to the upcoming development, whether it's census for the number of trees on the lot or trees that that may be raised. We don't have those development plans, but we do know that there are several thousand trees on the site, and that development of 200,000 square feet will invariably cause some of them to be lost. So we applaud a company that is proposing to be sustainable internationally. That's excellent. But you cannot be a sustainable company and wear that badge of honor internationally and publicly while also destroying vital habitat. And it's not necessarily solely the ecological value of this particular site, although we've had studies done that showed that this particular site is just as efficient, if not more efficient, at retaining the cooling effect that's offered by our natural environments than the forest canopy, in fact, is. That's preliminary information, but we have a sense that it's not solely this individual isolated value of this particular lot that matters. It's the fragmentation of the site as a whole that will incur, the doors that are open to development in the sector. We know that you can't really compromise one section of a space without it having an effect on the whole. We often refer to it as death by 1,000 paper cuts with these incursions over the years. If it's the REM, if it's the sinkholes, if it's the raising of monarch fields, if it's any of these kind of pressures on this natural environment, they are cumulative over time and jeopardize the space. So.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. I fixed it back. Thank you for letting me know.
I really have to get back to students, but I'll just show you. So this whole lot down to really the end from in here out to Chemin Saint-François. So as far as you can see with the trees, this is all hypertech.
Okay.
And you'll see many tens of trees that are marked and healthy trees. So initially we thought there might be some correlation with the emerald ash borer and sick trees, and that's when we first discovered that construction was coming in. It was due to the marking and the signs of construction coming on the lot. So so we didn't know that the land had been purchased. It was sold on April 4th of this year, and things have moved very quickly since then. Yeah.
And sorry, just how far in?
It goes all the way down to the other side of Chemin Saint-François. So if you walk this whole space, you'll see what's called the triangle. The city owns a tiny portion, a portion over at the very edge. But imagine this is one block that essentially goes back, that cuts into a portion of the dike here.
Okay. Okay. Located behind me is where Hypertech plans to build their new green headquarters.